Laughter rippled across the ballroom like champagne spilling over crystal. Gold chandeliers glowed above tuxedos and silver gowns, all orbiting the same center. Elijah King, tall, poised, unmoving. A woman's voice sliced through the hum of violins. "Clean floors, that's your job." Her words hit like broken glass. Elijah didn't blink. The phone in his hand glowed faint blue against his skin. Around him, the Bennett family laughed. Their empire of smiles was built on arrogance, not legacy. Richard Bennett, whiskey bold, tapped his glass. "You missed a spot, buddy." More laughter. Cameras flashed. The insult became performance. He simply adjusted his cufflinks. The air thickened. Every second of his silence made their noise feel cheaper. Across the room, a waitress froze mid-step, tray trembling. Her name tag read Maya. The violinist hesitated, bow hovering mid-string. Even the music didn't want to join them. Elijah's voice finally broke the silence, low, measured, the kind that makes people lean in. "Yes, terminate phase 1. He spoke into the phone, eyes locked on Richard. The laughter faltered. "Whoa," Clara Bennett said, brittle now. "You're serious? You're on a call in here?" Elijah slipped the phone into his pocket. "Some floors," he said quietly. "Clean themselves. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now, back to Elijah King. He stood still while the Bennett laughter died in their throats. The music resumed, lighter now, almost nervous. Richard leaned toward his father. "Dad, who even invited this guy?" No one answered, because someone in that golden crowd already knew. The man they had just mocked wasn't a waiter. He was the one they were all waiting for. The man about to decide the fate of their $50 billion deal. The chandelier light caught in Elijah's eyes as he exhaled, calm as a verdict. Justice, it seemed, had perfect timing. The gala at the Grand Meridian wasn't just another social parade. It was the prelude to a $50 billion merger between Bennett Holdings and an unnamed tech powerhouse. The irony? The powerhouse was standing right there, unannounced, holding his own phone. Elijah King had arrived without security, without a name card, and without warning. The staff thought he was early labor. The Bennetts thought he was background. That was the point. He preferred to see people's truth before giving them his. The ballroom itself glittered with curated opulence. Marble floors polished like mirrors, gold drapes trembling with the hum of air vents, violins trying too hard to sound effortless. Waiters floated through carrying trays that looked heavier than they should. Every smile was strategy, every compliment, a transaction. At the far table, Richard Bennett laughed with a banker from Zurich. "You can always tell who doesn't belong," he said. His father, Charles Bennett, nodded. "It's instinct," he murmured, eyes grazing Elijah for a fraction of a second before looking away. Elijah caught it. That brief evaluation, less than a heartbeat, was the whole story of his life told again. The same glance he'd seen at 26 when a boardroom intern asked if he was lost. The same at 30 when an investor suggested he use the service elevator. Every version of that look carved another reason to stay silent until the moment it mattered. Across the room, Maya balanced a tray of champagne flutes. She noticed him again, the quiet man they'd mocked, still standing with the posture of someone who owned time itself. He looked neither humiliated nor angry, just deliberate. Then came the announcement. A booming voice from the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we welcome the executive partner behind this historic deal." Applause thundered. The Bennetts turned, expectant, glowing with self-congratulation. Elijah stayed where he was. His phone vibrated once. A message from his assistant. "Stage ready. Press at 10. He looked toward the balcony clock. 9:54 p.m. 6 minutes until revelation. Charles Bennett lifted his glass. "To legacy," he declared, "and to partners who know their place. Laughter, the kind that pretends to be harmless." Elijah's yaw tightened, barely perceptible. He adjusted his tie, eyes sweeping the chandelier light that fractured into tiny suns across the room. He whispered to no one in particular, "Legacy's about to change its address." And with that, he moved slow, silent, cutting through the laughter like gravity itself. The room didn't know it yet, but the balance of power had already shifted. The string quartet had just shifted into a slow waltz when a voice, bright and brittle, cut through it. "Excuse me, this section is reserved." Clara Bennett stood in a gown the color of champagne and entitlement. Her diamonds caught the light like little knives. She smiled without warmth. "You're blocking the photographers, sir." Elijah stopped beside the bar. His reflection shimmered in the mirror behind rows of untouched bottles. He wasn't in the way. He was in their frame. Richard leaned back in his chair, a grin spreading wide. Maybe he's scouting for a cleaning gig. These floors are tough to maintain. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, just cruel enough to fill the silence. Elijah didn't answer. He simply gestured to the bartender for water. That calm unnerved them more than anger could have. Clara's tone sharpened. "Look, I don't know who let you in, but this is a private gala. Guests of honor only." He turned, glass in hand. "Then it seems I qualify." Richard scoffed. "Qualify? Do you even know whose event this is?" Elijah took a sip. "I'm familiar." Charles Bennett finally spoke from his seat near the center. His voice was slow, rich, and heavy with the authority of old money. "Young man, there's a certain decorum expected in this environment. I suggest you find another room before security assists you." A waiter froze mid-step, eyes flicking nervously between them. Maya, still stationed by the wall, could feel her pulse in her throat. The atmosphere had shifted something electric, something dangerous, like static before a storm. Elijah set the glass down gently. "You're right," he said. "Decorum matters." He reached into his jacket not fast, just deliberate, and pulled out a small access badge with a single gold insignia. It caught the chandelier's light like a spark. The Bennett crest. Charles frowned. "Where did you get that?" Elijah smiled faintly. "From your legal department, yesterday." A flicker of confusion passed through the table. The laughter thinned, replaced by whispering. Clara glanced toward her father, uneasy. Richard tried to reclaim control. "Okay, buddy, this isn't funny. Who invited you?" Elijah's eyes met his. "Who invited you?" The words landed hard, simple as truth. The bartender's hand paused over a shaker. Maya nearly dropped her tray. Charles's expression hardened. Something in him recognized the danger before anyone else did. Elijah's phone buzzed once. He looked down, just enough for them to see the notification flash. Contract termination request. Pending authorization. He didn't tap it yet. He just looked back up. "I won't repeat myself," Charles said. "Security will escort you out now." Elijah stepped forward, close enough that the older man could see his calm wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. "Then I suggest," Elijah said softly, "you call them fast. Because the deal you're celebrating, it's about to disappear from your portfolio." The chandelier flickered once. The air changed again. And suddenly, no one was sure who was supposed to be leaving the room. The ballroom had gone uneasy, the kind of quiet that follows a crack of thunder no one saw coming. Clara's glass trembled slightly as she set it down. The camera flashes slowed, conversations fractured into whispers. Charles Bennett straightened in his chair, summoning that familiar corporate tone polished by decades of boardrooms. "Young man, I don't know what game you're playing, but this event is not the place for theatrics." Elijah looked at him evenly. "You're right. It's the place for truth." Richard stood, his smirk forced. "Truth. You walked into a private gala uninvited. You've insulted our guests and disrupted the evening. Be grateful we don't have you removed already." Elijah's expression didn't change. He simply folded his hands behind his back, an old habit from his early days running factory floors when silence was the only armor he had. "Removed," he repeated quietly as if tasting the word. "You always reach for removal when faced with discomfort." Maya, from the edge of the room, saw it differently. This wasn't confrontation, it was dissection. He was taking them apart with calm precision. A security guard appeared near the exit, radio blinking. Clara gestured sharply. "There, that's him. Escort this man out immediately." The guard hesitated. "Ma'am, he's on the clearance list." "What?" Clara blinked. "Yes," the guard confirmed, glancing at his tablet. "Executive-level access under corporate authorization." Richard snapped. "There's a mistake." Elijah turned slightly. "There is," he said. "Just not the one you think." The guard froze, uncertain. Even Charles looked rattled now, his confidence fraying at the edges. Elijah took a step closer to the table. The marble echoed beneath his shoes, sharp as a gavel. "I came here tonight to see something money can't buy honor. But all I've seen is inheritance mistaking itself for worth." "Oh." Charles rose, his voice lowering into threat. You're testing dangerous ground. Elijah nodded. I built it. A murmur swept through the guests. Cameras reappeared. The violinist had stopped playing entirely. Maya's phone buzzed in her apron pocket, notifications exploding online from those already streaming fragments of the scene. Clara tried to laugh, brittle and hollow. This is ridiculous. You're nobody, just some consultant with a prop badge. Elijah smiled slightly, not with amusement but pity. Consultants ask for approval. I give it. The words hung in the air like smoke. He took out his phone again, thumb hovering over the screen. The light reflected off the gold rim of his cufflink, illuminating his face just enough for recognition to dawn across the table. Charles's eyes widened, the kind of realization that comes too late. Elijah looked at his reflection in the wine glass before him and whispered, Phase 2. Oh. Somewhere near the entrance, 2 more security officers entered this time. Not for him. They waited silently by the door, heads bowed slightly in acknowledgement. Maya exhaled, realizing what no one else had yet. He hadn't been the intruder. He was the inspection. And every second of their arrogance had just become evidence. The tension in the ballroom had changed shape. It wasn't outrage anymore, it was awareness. That slow, creeping kind that slides under skin and whispers, something's wrong here. The Bennetts were still pretending control, but everyone else could feel it slipping through the cracks like water under a locked door. Charles's jaw tightened. I don't appreciate riddles, mister, whatever your name is. Elijah King, he said simply. The name dropped like a stone in water, small, but heavy enough to ripple through every conversation in the room. Clara blinked. You're lying. That name's on your contract, Elijah finished. His phone screen glowed again. I signed it. A hush fell. Someone near the back whispered, Wait, the Elijah King? Cameras shifted. Guests started murmuring to each other, phones rising like lanterns. Charles forced a smile, desperate to reclaim the narrative. This is absurd. We've never met. My firm negotiates directly with Summit Technologies. Elijah nodded. You're right. You spoke with my vice president. She's on that call you ignored last Thursday. The color drained from Charles's face. That's impossible. Try checking your missed calls. The violinist set his bow down completely now, watching like everyone else. The only sound left was the faint hum of camera shutters and champagne fizzing too loudly in half-empty glasses. At the corner, Maya's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. She didn't mean to film. She just wanted proof that she'd seen this, proof that power didn't always look the way people assume. But then she saw Clara move toward Elijah again, anger overtaking shock. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Clara hissed. Coming here just to humiliate us? Elijah turned to her, calm. No. I came here hoping you'd recognize your mistake before the papers do. Richard scoffed. You can't be serious. You think anyone here believes... Mr. King, a voice interrupted. Everyone turned. It was Maya. Her voice shook, but not from fear. Sir, I saw everything. They mocked you before you even spoke. I heard what they said. The room fell still. Every eye shifted toward her, the lowest person on the social ladder, suddenly the loudest. Clara's tone turned sharp. Stay out of this. Your staff. Maya stood her ground. So was he, 10 minutes ago. The words hit harder than anyone expected. Even Elijah paused. For a moment, pride flickered in his eyes, almost paternal. Charles's composure fractured. This is a circus. I want every recording deleted. Now. Elijah's voice cut through him. Try it, and your company will lose more than footage. He tapped his screen once. The chandeliers dimmed slightly as the main hall monitors flickered to life, displaying a mirrored live feed from security cameras. The Bennetts' laughter from earlier, every insult played back across the ballroom, echoing louder than it ever had in real time. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some turned away. Others started filming again. Elijah looked at the monitor, then back at them. Truth doesn't need volume, just witnesses. Maya lowered her phone. Then you've got one. For the first time all evening, no one dared to speak. The playback on the giant monitors didn't just echo it accused. Laughter that had sounded harmless minutes ago now came back like confession. Every smirk, every line of condescension, every sip of champagne was there under the unforgiving light of truth. Clara's voice from the recording sliced through the air again. Clean floors, that's your job. The crowd flinched as if they'd heard it for the first time. Someone whispered, That's her voice, isn't it? Another murmured, This is bad. Uh, Charles Bennett rose to his feet, fury returning as cover for shame. Turn that off. This is private property. Elijah didn't move. You should be grateful I didn't bring the board. Richard slammed his glass down hard enough to crack it. You think you can walk in here, embarrass my family, and your family did that on their own? Elijah interrupted. His tone wasn't raised, just sharpened enough to slice through arrogance like paper. The security guards near the door didn't move this time. They weren't looking at Elijah, they were watching the Bennett. One of them received a message on his earpiece, nodded once, and whispered, "Confirmed, sir." Charles frowned. Confirmed what? Elijah finally spoke with the patience of someone who'd rehearsed justice for years. That phase 2 is complete. My legal division has formally withdrawn from the merger. Your board will be notified by sunrise. The words hit harder than any shout could. Clara's face went pale. You can't. I already did. Richard's laugh broke into disbelief. You're bluffing. That deal funds 3 subsidiaries. Elijah raised a finger. Funded. Silence. A full second where every breath in the ballroom synchronized in disbelief. Maya stood by the wall, her heart pounding but her posture straight. For the first time in her life, she saw arrogance bend, and it looked fragile. Charles' voice cracked. You'll regret this. Elijah met his gaze, steady and cold. I regret giving people like you the illusion of partnership. Cameras captured the moment like courtroom evidence. The internet would later call it the quiet collapse. Clara tried one last deflection. You planned this. You wanted us humiliated. No, Elijah said softly. I wanted you aware. Humiliation's just awareness arriving too late. Ugh. Gasps followed, low but constant, the sound of an audience realizing what kind of story they were living inside. He turned to Maya, still clutching her tray. You can put that down now, he said quietly. You've done enough. She set it aside, almost trembling, not from fear but release. Then Elijah faced the Bennetts one last time. Every room reveals its truth when someone walks in without pretending to belong. He paused, letting the words settle. I just stopped pretending. The chandelier above flickered again, reflecting in the shattered rim of Richard's glass. It looked like firelight on a sinking ship. Elijah straightened his jacket, nodded once to security, and said evenly, Escort our hosts out. And as the guards stepped forward, the empire of arrogance finally learned how small it sounded when stripped of applause. The sound of heels against marble was the only rhythm left in the ballroom. Clara stumbled backward as the security guards advanced, silent, deliberate, not cruel but final. Her gown shimmered like liquid gold beneath the lights, but her composure had already cracked. You can't do this, she shouted. We own this venue. Elijah didn't flinch. You leased it, from one of my subsidiaries. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Someone near the stage whispered, He's serious. Another whispered back, He's the owner. Charles tried to stand taller, clutching the last fragments of pride. This is harassment. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. Elijah's eyes met his calmly. You already are. He tapped his phone again, and the massive LED screen behind him split in 2 on the left, the live footage from minutes earlier. On the right, a corporate logo flashing, Summit Holdings official announcement. The press release scrolled in real time. Summit Holdings confirms termination of all Bennett contracts following verified internal misconduct, effective immediately. Charles's voice broke. This can't be public. It already is, Elijah said, and it's trending faster than your apology will. The crowd murmured like a tide turning. Some guests began stepping back, hiding their faces from cameras. Others filmed openly. Power was changing direction, and everyone could feel it. Maya stood a few feet away, her phone still in hand. The trembling was gone now. You just saved a lot of people from ever dealing with them again, she said quietly. Elijah looked at her, not smiling, but the corner of his mouth softened. No, he replied. I just reminded them who they were dealing with. The guards escorted Clara and Richard toward the doors. Charles tried to follow, but paused halfway, turning back. You'll regret crossing my family, he spat. Elijah took a step closer. The mistake wasn't crossing you, it was letting you think I needed to. That silence, after the kind that erases every excuse, spread across the ballroom like smoke. Maya watched as Charles's reflection vanished through the glass doors. It felt like the air itself exhaled, finally released from the weight of arrogance. The string quartet, uncertain but obedient, began to play again, slow, hesitant notes filling the space where humiliation had lived only moments before. Elijah glanced toward the musicians. "Continue," he said. "Tonight doesn't end with them. It ends with dignity." Maya tilted her head. "You planned all this?" He shook his head slightly. "No, I planned for truth. The rest took care of itself." The monitors behind him still glowed, the press statement looping quietly. Guests began to leave in hushed clusters, some whispering apologies to Maya as they passed, as if she represented the conscience they'd all ignored. Elijah turned toward the exit, his reflection in the marble floor tall, centered, and unshaken. The Bennett Empire had walked in believing they owned the night. They walked out realizing they were just guests. And for the first time, the room felt clean. The ballroom no longer buzzed. It breathed. Gone was the laughter that used to sit heavy in the corners. Gone was the noise of money disguised as confidence. What remained was a silence so pure it sounded earned. Elijah stood near the balcony doors, watching the city lights stretch beneath him like a network of possibilities. Rain had begun outside, a thin silver curtain tapping against glass, washing the skyline. It fit. Justice always looked better after a storm. Behind him, Maya approached slowly, her voice soft but sure. "I've worked here 3 years," she said. "I've seen them treat people like furniture." Tonight was the first time the furniture talked back. Elijah almost smiled. Furniture talks when you stop polishing it and start listening. Maya hesitated, then asked the question everyone else was afraid to. "Why didn't you say who you were from the start?" He turned toward her. "Because they didn't earn the truth. They only respect power when it introduces itself first. I needed them to meet silence and mistake it for weakness before they learned what it really was." The chandelier above them flickered as if nodding in agreement. Maya exhaled. "They'll spin this tomorrow, say it was staged." "They can," Elijah said. "The truth doesn't need headlines. It just waits." The hotel manager, a man who had watched everything from the edge of the crowd, stepped forward nervously. "Mr. King, sir, I had no idea they were—" Elijah cut him off gently. "You don't need to explain. You just need to remember." The man nodded, humbled, before stepping back into the background, his rightful place, now not of authority, but awareness. For a moment, Elijah let the quiet settle. He wasn't savoring victory, he was measuring change. In the reflection of the glass, he saw not himself but every version of him that had been told you don't belong here. 20 years of looks, whispers, denied handshakes, all of it led here, to a ballroom that finally mirrored the truth. He looked at Maya again. "You kept your ground when everyone else folded. That matters." "I just did what was right," she said. "That's what power's supposed to sound like." Outside, thunder rolled low across the city. The rain deepened. He turned back toward the door, straightened his jacket, and nodded once to the security team still standing nearby. "Clear the floor," he said, "and make sure staff get the rest of the night off with pay." Maya blinked. "All of them?" "All of them," he confirmed. "They worked under a shadow tonight. They deserve to see what light feels like." The guards exchanged small smiles. The musicians began to play again, but softer this time, the melody stripped of vanity. Elijah lingered for a heartbeat, watching the chandelier sway in rhythm with the rain. In the reflection of the city below, he didn't look like a man who'd won a battle. He looked like someone who had just finished cleaning the room where history had been rewritten. The rain had turned steady now, drumming against the glass like an audience that refused to leave. Most guests had slipped out quietly, their designer shoes echoing down the corridor of shame. Only a few lingered people who understood that witnessing justice was a privilege too rare to walk away from. Elijah stood beneath the chandelier, phone in hand, the glow painting his face with calm defiance. On the monitors behind him, the Summit Holdings logo faded into a live broadcast feed. His assistant's voice came through the speakers, steady, composed. "Mr. King, the press is online. They're asking if you'd like to make a statement." Maya's eyes widened. The crowd stirred. Even the manager froze. Elijah nodded once. "Patch it through." The screen flickered. A wall of reporters appeared, the hum of microphones filling the ballroom. Elijah didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Good evening," he began. "I'm Elijah King, founder and chief executive of Summit Holdings. Tonight's event was intended to finalize a merger between my company and Bennett Industries. Instead, it revealed something far more valuable: clarity." The words were simple, but the tone carried authority too smooth to challenge. Every syllable landed like a verdict. He continued, "For years, I've watched negotiations where civility disguised arrogance and partnership meant surrender. That ends tonight. My company will not invest in those who mistake privilege for vision." Cameras clicked. Screenshots would later flood social media, captioned, "The calmest power move in history." Maya looked up at him, eyes bright. She whispered, "You're live everywhere. CNN, BBC, even Al Jazeera." Elijah gave the faintest nod. "Then let them hear this too." He faced the camera directly. "Power isn't about volume, it's about consequence. Those who weaponize humiliation will learn that silence can be the loudest sound in the room." Now, the reporters erupted in questions, but Elijah muted the feed. The screen dimmed back to the summit logo. Behind him, the last few guests stood frozen, unsure whether to applaud or pray they wouldn't be noticed. Elijah turned to Maya. "Find the junior staff who spoke up. Make sure they're promoted within the week." Her breath caught. "You mean me?" He looked at her steadily. "You and anyone who refused to look away." Oh. The moment hung between them, not gratitude, not charity, but recognition. Two people who had stood on opposite ends of power now shared its truth. Maya nodded slowly. "Thank you, sir." He smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. Just do the same for someone else when it's your turn." The musicians had stopped playing again. The quiet that followed wasn't tense anymore. It was sacred, like a room catching its breath after a long lie finally ended. Elijah looked once more toward the city beyond the rain-soaked glass. Its skyline reflected across his face like a signature. In that reflection, the man once mistaken for help had just become history's correction. By the time Elijah ended the broadcast, the ballroom had emptied into a quiet that felt earned. The air smelled faintly of spilled champagne and rain, the scent of celebration turned confession. The chandeliers still glowed, but softer now, as if aware that their brilliance had witnessed too much vanity. Charles Bennett remained by the exit, his tie loose, his confidence leaking out one heartbeat at a time. Clara stood beside him, her mascara bleeding in thin gray lines down her face. Richard, usually the loudest, sat at the nearest table, staring at his reflection in the cracked rim of a wine glass. Elijah approached them without hurry. His footsteps were calm, precise, the way truth walks when it knows it's already won. Charles tried to recover his composure, voice brittle. "You think this ends tonight? We have lawyers, investors, decades of reputation." "Reputation," Elijah said quietly, "is what arrogance calls memory." He stopped just short of them, letting the weight of silence finish what language couldn't. Clara swallowed hard. "You've destroyed us." "No," he replied. "You destroyed yourselves the moment you thought dignity had a dress code." For a second, no one spoke. The rain outside grew louder, a steady rhythm marking time. Richard finally stood, his bravado flickering back in one last desperate spark. "You came here to humiliate us. Admit it." Elijah met his gaze, steady as a mirror. "I came here to remind you who signs your checks." Richard blinked. "What?" "I'm the majority shareholder of Bennett Industries, acquired your floating stock 8 months ago through Shell Acquisitions." He slipped his phone from his pocket, tapped once, and a digital document appeared on the main monitor. "Ownership transfer, Summit Holdings, 62% controlling interest." The trio stared at the screen as though watching gravity reverse. Charles's mouth opened, but no words came. His world had tilted every negotiation, every boast, every assumption now inverted. Elijah's voice dropped lower. "You didn't just mock your partner tonight, you mocked your employer." Maya gasped softly near the doorway. Even she hadn't known the full scope. Elijah stepped closer, his tone a whisper sharp enough to cut glass. This merger was never a partnership. It was an audit. He turned to the guards. "Escort them out, but make sure they take one last look at the screen. That's the only reflection they should trust from now on." As the Bennetts were led toward the exit, cameras captured the final frame, Charles turning back, eyes wide with something that almost looked like understanding. Elijah exhaled, slow and certain. The rain outside softened, as though the storm had recognized its own ending. He glanced at Maya. "Every empire falls the same way," he said. "Not from attack, from exposure." Maya nodded. "And you didn't even raise your voice." Elijah's lips curved into something between fatigue and pride. "I didn't need to." Because power, when it's real, doesn't perform. It simply stands there, and everything else adjusts around it. The Bennetts' departure left an echo behind them, shoes striking marble, then fading into the corridor like retreating thunder. For the first time that night, no one in the ballroom moved. Every guest left standing felt complicit somehow, as if they too had laughed a little too soon or looked away a little too long. Elijah stood still in the center of it all, the quiet orbiting him. The screens behind him displayed the company seal of Summit Holdings. No sound, no flash, just a single sentence looping in white text. Integrity is the only luxury that never depreciates. Maya approached again, holding a towel she didn't remember picking up. Her voice broke the silence gently. "Sir, do you ever get used to this? Watching people fall apart?" Elijah looked at her, then at the empty stage where a chandelier's reflection rippled across spilled champagne. "No one falls apart," he said. "They just run out of room to lie." He walked toward the edge of the dance floor where the Bennetts had been seated earlier. 3 half-finished glasses remained. He touched none of them. "They'll rebuild," he murmured, "but differently. Shame has a strange way of teaching architecture." Maya set the towel down, hesitant. "And you? What do you do after something like this?" He paused. "I go home, and make sure no one in my company forgets why we built it in the first place." The hotel manager appeared again, pale but respectful. "Mr. King, press is waiting outside. Should I—" Elijah raised a hand. "They can wait. Let them write about what they saw, not what I say." He turned back to Maya. "Do you know what the hardest part of power is?" She shook her head. "It's remembering that you're not supposed to enjoy it." The rain outside softened to a whisper. The storm had passed, but its scent lingered, a mix of ozone and redemption. The remaining guests began to drift toward the exit, some pausing to nod in silent apology as they passed Elijah. Others couldn't meet his eyes at all. At the far end of the room, a young valet approached nervously with Elijah's coat. "Sir, your car's ready." Elijah took the coat, then stopped. "What's your name?" "Marcus, sir." He handed the valet a business card. "Summit Talent Division. Tomorrow tell them Elijah sent you." The boy's eyes widened. "Me? Why?" Elijah smiled faintly. "Because you didn't look away either." Maya watched as Marcus left, still stunned. "You make it sound like seeing the truth is a job." "It is," Elijah said, "just not one most people apply for." The ballroom lights dimmed automatically, end-of-night protocol. The glow caught the shards of broken glass like constellations on marble. Elijah looked once more toward the doors where arrogance had exited hours ago and said quietly, mostly to himself, "That's enough justice for one evening." Then he turned away, leaving the echo of dignity to do the rest. The city outside had fallen into a soft hush, the kind that only comes after something irreversible has happened. The rain had stopped. Streetlights shimmered on wet asphalt, turning the pavement into a mirror of what had just unfolded upstairs, a reflection of reckoning. Elijah stepped out of the Grand Meridian and into the night air. No cameras now, no flashes, no applause. Just the sound of his shoes against the sidewalk and the faint hum of traffic somewhere far enough away to feel like another world. Maya followed a few steps behind, hesitant. "Sir," she said, "people online are calling it the night the room went silent. It's everywhere. Your name, the video, everything's viral." Elijah's gaze stayed fixed on the skyline. Then maybe silence finally found its audience. She smiled, unsure whether it was safe to. "You don't look happy." I'm not," he said simply. "Justice isn't supposed to feel good, it's supposed to feel right." They stopped beside a waiting car. His driver stood at attention, but Elijah waved him off and leaned against the door instead, watching droplets slide down the black metal like tiny comets burning out. "Do you ever get tired of being underestimated?" Maya asked. He exhaled through a faint smile. "It's efficient. They show me who they are before I ever have to show them who I am." "Oh." The driver's phone buzzed once. Elijah's own lit up a moment later, notifications, statements, invitations from networks already framing the night as legend. He ignored them all. "History doesn't need noise," he said quietly. "It just needs memory." Maya tilted her head. "What happens to them now? The Bennetts?" "They'll survive," Elijah said. "People like that always do. But they'll remember who walked them out of their own empire." He looked at her. "And that's enough." A gust of cool air swept down the street, carrying the faint scent of rain and possibility. Elijah straightened, pulling his coat closed. You did something tonight, Maya said softly. You made people see. He glanced at her, his eyes steady but kind. No, we did. Justice doesn't need a stage, just witnesses. She nodded, quiet and proud. As he stepped into the car, she called after him, Sir, what do you call what happened tonight? He paused, one hand on the door. The reflection of city lights shimmered across his face. Accountability, he said, and the start of something cleaner. The door shut with a muted click. The car pulled away slowly, headlights carving through the last of the mist. Inside, Elijah leaned back, watching the city glide by each building, a silhouette against the dawn he had just rewritten. He didn't need to post or boast or explain. The world had already watched. The message was simple, carved into silence itself. He never shouted. He never begged. He just reminded everyone who really owned the room.